When you think about science, what comes to mind? Probably sterile labs, right? Complex data sets? Well, forget all of that. Today, we're going way back to an era where science was a grand adventure, fueled by passion and even described in poetry. This is the story of the Age of Wonder.
Now, you might read that and think, a love poem. But nope. This is John Keats, and he's talking about science. He's trying to capture that raw, breathtaking feeling of a huge scientific breakthrough, the very moment a new planet just swims into view in an astronomer's telescope. Amazing.
So think about that for a second. What if the biggest scientific discoveries felt just like writing a poem? It's a pretty powerful idea, isn't it? And that question is really at the heart of what we're talking about today. What if science and art weren't opposites at all, but just two sides of the same coin, both driven by this deep, profound sense of wonder? All right, let's dive in.
So, this era, it wasn't just science as we know it. People called it romantic science. It was a time when discovering the secrets of the universe was a deeply personal and often heroic quest. Yeah, forget about peer-reviewed papers and grant proposals. This was a whole second scientific revolution, and it was fueled by things like gut feelings and just raw passion. We're talking about chasing a hunch, sometimes risking your own life for an experiment, and being completely consumed by the thrill of finding something new.
Okay, so when are we talking about exactly? This Age of Wonder was a pretty short but absolutely brilliant slice of time. You could say it was bookended by two of the most famous voyages in all of history. It starts with Captain Cook's first big journey to the Pacific in 1768, and it kind of wraps up when a young Charles Darwin sets sail on the Beagle in 1831.
So let's start our journey on Captain Cook's ship, because on that ship was a man who was basically the living embodiment of this new scientific spirit. His name was Joseph Banks, a brilliant and seriously daring botanist.
Now, Joseph Banks, he was only 26, super wealthy, super charismatic, definitely not your typical stuffy botanist. When he got on the HMS Endeavour, his mission was way bigger than just collecting plants. He wanted to understand the people of the Pacific. And when they got to Tahiti, he just dove right in, headfirst, into the local culture. He was basically inventing a whole new field of study as he went: ethnology.
And this is where things get really fascinating. The British crew was completely baffled because they thought the Tahitians were constantly stealing from them. But Banks, because he was so immersed in their culture, he started to see it differently. He realized it wasn't about theft at all. It was a clash of two totally different worldviews. You see, for the Europeans, an object was private property, end of story. But for the Tahitians, taking something was more like a skillful way to rebalance the scales, to counter the incredible, overwhelming amount of stuff these visitors had.
This whole cultural misunderstanding almost blew up the entire mission. Their most important piece of gear, this brass quadrant they had to have for a vital astronomical observation, it gets stolen. Now, the typical response would be to send in the Marines, right? But not Banks. He just takes off on foot, chasing the thief for 7 miles deep into the jungle. And when he finds him, in what could have been a super hostile village, what does he do? He sits down, totally unarmed, and just talks. He negotiates. And guess what? He got the quadrant back, saving the entire scientific mission with diplomacy, not with force. Incredible.
And you see, Banks wasn't just some detached observer taking notes from the sidelines. No way. He was a participant. He recorded their language, their beliefs. He even witnessed a girl's painful tattooing ceremony. He danced in mourning rituals covered in charcoal. And, get this, he was the first European to ever write about the exhilarating art of surfing. He wasn't there to conquer a place. He was there to truly understand it. All right, so from the lush islands of the Pacific, let's turn our gaze upwards, to the stars, because a whole different kind of exploration was happening there. I want you to meet William and Caroline Herschel. They were the ultimate scientific power couple, and yeah, they were brother and sister. Working right from their own backyard, they built the most powerful telescopes anywhere on Earth. And every single night, they'd be out there, patiently unlocking the secrets of deep space. And then, one night in 1781, came a discovery that was about to completely reshape how we saw the entire universe. William's looking through his telescope, and he spots something different. It wasn't a star. It was a planet. He had discovered Uranus, the first new planet found since ancient times. Think about that. In one moment, the size of our known solar system literally doubled. This sent absolute shockwaves through the scientific world and inspired a whole generation of poets, just like Keats, to look up at the sky with a totally new sense of wonder.
Okay, so we've gone from the quiet, meticulous work of the Herschels to someone who was, well, The exact opposite. We're about to meet a man who turned chemistry into a public spectacle. A guy who basically became a rock star of the scientific world.
And that rock star was Sir Humphry Davy. He was young, he was brilliant, and he was fiercely ambitious. I mean, his goal was to be nothing less than the Newton of chemistry. And you know what? For a while there, it looked like he was actually gonna pull it off.
Davy was just a force of nature. His public lectures, they were like theatrical productions, total sellout events. He literally risked his life experimenting with gases on himself. He used this new thing called electrochemistry to discover a ton of new elements, like sodium and potassium. And then he invents the life-saving miner's safety lamp and just gives the patent away for free. An amazing guy.
And this passion Davy had, it was totally contagious. The famous poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge went to one of his lectures and was so fired up that he said, "I shall attack chemistry like a shark." I mean, what a quote. That just perfectly captures the spirit of the age. It wasn't just about learning, it was about devouring knowledge.
But this golden age, this era of passionate, personal science, it couldn't last forever. The world was changing, and science was about to change right along with it.
And this is the big shift, right here. The idea of the natural philosopher, this heroic, wonder-driven explorer of all knowledge, that was being replaced by a new word, a new kind of person, the scientist. And being a scientist meant being a professional. It was becoming less about a personal quest and more about specialized fields and getting practical, useful results.
What really sealed the deal was the creation of big organizations, like the British Association for the Advancement of Science. Suddenly, science wasn't just the playground for wealthy adventurers and lone geniuses anymore. It was becoming a structured, professional career path.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? That Age of Wonder was all about fusing art and science, treating discovery as the ultimate human adventure. So in our world today, with its hyper-specialization and data-driven research, have we lost some of that wonder? Have we traded the romantic explorer for the professional scientist? It's definitely something to think about.